Reform UK, in the form of Nigel Farage, says that it would be reasonable to pay the Taliban to send migrants who entered Britain illegally back to Afghanistan. And in fact, a senior Taliban official has told the Daily Telegraph this morning that the regime is ready and willing to work with Nigel Farage and would embrace returnees from the UK.
Ahead of unveiling the party's new immigration plans, Zia Youssef, who leads Reform's Department of Government Efficiency, told BBC Radio 4 that the British people have had enough.
Well, this is just one of many big questions that arise out of yesterday's speech by Farage. So let's focus on this one. Is it wrong, do you think, to give taxpayers' money to countries who quite clearly violate human rights? Indeed, a country we don't even recognise. Or do you think it's a tough but necessary way of returning those who entered the UK illegally? Well, joining us now is the Liberal Democrat MP Mike Martin, who served in Afghanistan. He says we categorically should not and cannot give government money to the Taliban. And senior political correspondent at the Daily Express, Christian Calgi, who believes that we just have to try something new to tackle the small boats crisis. But, Mike, I'll begin with you. As an ex-military man, you'll probably be familiar with a quote from Churchill. He once famously said that if Hitler invaded hell, he, Churchill, would at least make a favourable reference to the devil in the House of Commons. His point being, of course, that sometimes you have to make concessions to an enemy if it serves a greater purpose. And isn't that the principle here?
So that's not actually what we're talking about. I've got no problems with talking with the Taliban. Indeed, when I was in Afghanistan, that was my job. I was a political officer. What we're talking about here is making payments to the Taliban. And the Taliban are a designated terrorist organisation by the US government, the UN, and large bits of it, and the leadership are designated as terrorists by the UK. So we can't pay government money, taxpayers' money, to terrorist organisations.
But if we are paying
nonsense.
it via aid, via foreign aid, doesn't Yusuf have a point there, that the principle kind of stands?
No, they're completely separate. When we give money in aid to Afghanistan, we give it to the UN or the World Food Programme. They buy food and they take that food into Afghanistan and give it to people. That's totally different to giving money to, say, Siraj Haqqani, who's the Interior Minister of Afghanistan, who is a designated global terrorist.
Mm-hmm. OK, I mean, Christian, let's come to you, because how can you defend giving money to a terrorist organisation like this, you know, whatever the aims of why you're giving that money?
I think it is deliberately misleading to characterise Reform's proposals as handing, you know, paying cheques and signing them to the Taliban. What they're talking about is having a carrot and a stick approach to ensure that all countries are willing to accept returned migrants. And the Taliban this morning, they've spoken to the Daily Telegraph. They themselves are not saying we want cash to boost our quality of life. They are essentially saying, if we are able to accept some cash to reintegrate your illegal migrants, then that helps butter up the deal.
But I mean, that is what they've said today.
important.
But actually, Reform did say that if countries weren't willing to take people, they would pay them, and that includes Afghanistan and the Taliban.
Reform said if countries weren't willing to pay, they would use a carrot and a stick. Either that means giving foreign aid, it means threatening to withdraw foreign aid, and Zia Youssef points out we already give tens, if not hundreds of millions to Afghanistan. It means potential economic sanctions. It means we stop issuing visas. We've got to do everything in the round, and I think the voters of this country will, by and large, agree with Reform that the existing parties have failed, and if they don't like the sort of radical proposals that Reform are now putting forward, it is on them because they failed over decades to grapple this issue.
We heard the clip there from Zia, right? So Reform he did actually say we are going to be giving money to the Taliban. So under the Terrorism Act, it's illegal to advocate for material support for terrorist organisations. So I'm going to be writing to the Home Secretary today asking her to look into whether this case needs to be referred to the police. This is how serious this is. No one disputes that we need to deal with the small boats problem. Of course we do. And nobody disputes that you need to do stuff in the round, exactly as you're suggesting. But this is not part of the mix. And I think the final point, if I may, is that immigration is Reform's big thing, right? This is what they should know everything about. And then their big launch yesterday, 6-page document, and it just falls apart under the slightest scrutiny.
I disagree with you, because one of the points I wanted to get across is that it is wrong to characterise what Reform want to do, i.e. returning illegal immigrants to Afghanistan, as something uniquely right-wing. It's happening across Europe. Germany has sent 80 illegal migrants back to Afghanistan.
I haven't said
Turkey...
If you fail your asylum claim, yes, we should be negotiating with Afghanistan to return people. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm talking about making payments to a global terrorist organisation.
And if
that is what Reform
but your
advocated.
policy falls apart
That is illegal.
if the Taliban refuse to take them back, and that's what Reform's trying to get at. As I say, the EU has facilitated over 60,000 illegal migrants being returned from Turkey, so it is not a sort of far-right, zany, isolationist policy. If anything, I think you're being slightly too isolationist when it comes, I'm afraid, to the Taliban. They are the reality of Afghanistan. We tried to get rid of them. We failed. They took power instantly. They're not going anywhere. We have an embassy in Tehran. We vehemently disagree with the Iranian regime, but we try and make the best of what diplomacy we can have. And I'm afraid just lifting up the drawbridge with the Taliban and refusing to engage with them when it serves our interests is the wrong approach.
I just want to make one technical point here. Actually, the Taliban, as far as the UK is concerned, is not actually a prescribed terrorist organisation. Many people in this country
Actually,
would
could I
refer
make
to
a
them
technical
as
point?
terrorists, but they're not a prescribed terrorist organisation.
The Haqqani Network is a UK prescribed terrorist organisation, and the leader of the Haqqani Network is the Interior Minister of the Taliban. The Haqqani Network is actually part of the Taliban.
But the Taliban as a whole is the point I'm making. But anyway, I want to ask you this. Do you believe that an illegal immigrant from Afghanistan who comes here and doesn't appear to have any clear reason for being here other than he doesn't like living in Afghanistan, do you believe he should be returned to Afghanistan?
So, of the 8,000 Afghans who claimed asylum in the UK last year, the courts decided that 97% of them had valid asylum claims. So, as a serving politician, it's not for me to say whether the courts are making correct or incorrect judgments, but I think that 97% acceptance of asylum claims tells us that probably they do have appropriate claims for asylum.
All right, but what about those who... we can argue that what the courts say to the end of the earth, but what about an Afghan asylum seeker who it's decided doesn't have a right to be here? Do you think that he or she should be sent back to Afghanistan?
Absolutely,
right, well,
I've already said that. Yeah.
Can you not see that, if you like, greasing the wheels a bit is a way of making that a more efficient proposition?
Sure. So public policy is all about trade-offs, right? So you're calling it greasing the wheel, and I'm calling out giving money to... Yeah, sure, it's a turn of phrase, but I'm saying that that's giving money to a terrorist organisation. So it's all about trade-offs, right? And which is the worst evil?
If you are defending that 96% acceptance rate, then you are completely out of step with the British public. And that is exactly why Reform are right to say we need to withdraw from the ECHR and we need to withdraw from international treaties. There was one example, right? An Afghan comes over here on a small boat, he rapes a British woman, and he's then now not allowed to be returned because, as a rapist, his life is in jeopardy if we send him back to Afghanistan. And in cases like that, I simply don't care what happens to them. I don't want them in our country. And I think the majority of the public are on my side.
At which point we have to draw the veil on it. Thank you both very much indeed for coming in. And this is day one of a conversation which is
many more
clearly going to go on for
to
the
be
next
had.
three and a half years, isn't it?